Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my NFL DraftKings picks for Week 5. Before we get started looking at this Week 5 slate, just want to thank you guys again for all the good support on my last NFL video, my Week 4 video. That video got over 300 likes again, absolutely insane. Thank you guys so much for that. Hopefully you guys used some of the picks in that video. The picks worked out really well last week. Had Deshaun Watson paired with Hopkins. That was a great combo. Also had Leonard Fournette as a core running back. He did really well. Charles Clay was my core tight end. He also did very well. The only thing I did sort of miss on was defense. I had the Patriots defense last week. I thought they were in a good spot, but I really underestimated how bad the Patriots defense actually is. I just saw they were playing at home versus Cam Newton, who has been pretty bad this year, aside from last week, and how much he's gotten sacked and turned the ball over this year. I thought the Patriots were in a really good spot at home. But that Patriots defense, it's just not good. Definitely shouldn't have recommended them. But other than that, we did really well last week, hit on a lot of good plays. Hopefully we'll be able to do good again this week. And if these picks help you out or last week's picks helped you out, be sure to drop a like on the video, guys. I would really appreciate it. Also, be sure to leave any comments if you have any feedback or if you just have any questions about this upcoming slate. Be sure to drop it down in the comment section below. I will reply to pretty much every comment if it is a question, or somebody else might reply to it. So if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Would really appreciate that. Let's try and get over 300 likes again. Would really appreciate it, guys. It means a lot to me just to see how well these videos are doing. All the likes they're getting, all the love you guys are giving. I do really appreciate it. But yeah, that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and get started looking at this Week 5 slate. Alright, so for quarterback this week, I think quarterback's pretty weak in my opinion. It is a small slate again this week, only 11 games, actually smaller than it was last week. DraftKings, they took the Sunday night game off again, so don't have the Sunday night game. Obviously, there's a Thursday night game as well that's not going to be on the main slate. So only 11 games on the main slate, so every position's going to be sort of thin. And I definitely think quarterback is one of them. Not a ton of quarterbacks I have a lot of interest in. I have 4 written down for this week. The first guy that I like is up top, Aaron Rodgers at 8,100. I think Rodgers is probably the best play on the board, but he is very expensive, and I don't think it's going to be very optimal to pay up for quarterback this week. I think there are other positions you want to pay up for, but Rodgers is definitely in play. This Green Bay-Dallas game has the highest total on the slate right now. I believe it's at like 53.5. So this game is going to be a game you want to target. But if I look to target a quarterback from this game, I'm going to go on the other side. Absolutely love Dak Prescott this week. He's my favorite quarterback on the board. I'm going to be plugging him into the core plays. Love him at 6,800. Playing at home against Green Bay. Like I said, this game is going to be a shootout in my opinion. And I think it's a really good spot for Dak Prescott, who's been very good this year, has been very consistent. Through 4 games this year, he's got 17, 17, 22, and 23 DraftKings points. He's been providing upside with his legs. He's rushed the ball 3 times in every game this year, has 1 rushing touchdown. Also has been throwing the ball a lot. 39 50 pass attempts against Denver, 36 against the Rams. Didn't pass much against Arizona, but still put up 22 DraftKings points in that game. So even if Dak isn't throwing a ton, he can still provide you fantasy points with his legs, which is so valuable in DFS. So I absolutely love this spot for Dak Prescott. I love this game this week. This is a game I'm going to be heavy on. Going to have the exposure to both sides. Going to have plenty of Cowboys in my lineup, plenty of Packers as well. I think it's a game that's going to be very high scoring. So I love Dak Prescott this week. He's my favorite quarterback on the board at 6,800. He's probably the only guy I'm going to target in the 6K range. I don't have a lot of interest in many of the quarterbacks in the 6K range. He would be the guy I would target. And if you don't want to target any quarterbacks in the 6K range, I would pay up for Rodgers. Look for some cheaper guys. There are some guys under 6K I have some interest in. I do have a couple guys written down under the 6K range. One of them is Carson Palmer at 5,900 going up against the Eagles. This Eagles defense has been really bad against the pass this year. Has a really bad secondary. So I think it is a good spot for Carson Palmer. Palmer is a guy I rarely play just because I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. I think he's kind of old, and I guess you could say he's kind of washed. But he has been performing well this year. Had a really rough game against Detroit to start the season, but after that, 19, 24, and 20 DraftKings points. And he is in another good spot here against the Eagles. I wish this game was in Arizona. Palmer does play well at home. Him playing on the road against the Eagles does scare me a bit, but like I said, this Eagles secondary has been really bad. They're allowing 285 passing yards per game, which is towards the bottom of the league, nearly dead last. So I think Palmer is a good play if you do want to go cheap. I don't mind him at 5,900. Also want to mention Jacoby Brissett at 5,600 going up against the 49ers. I think he is also in play if you're looking for a cheap quarterback. Brissett, in the 3 games that he started this year, he has had 2 really tough matchups against Arizona and Seattle. The one game that he had a really good matchup was against the Browns, and he really came through. 27.76 DraftKings points in that game. Brissett is in a good matchup here, playing at home against the 49ers. So I think if you are looking for a cheap quarterback, do like Jacoby Brissett. Just like Dak Prescott, Brissett provides you upside with his legs, can run the ball, has 6, 5, and 3 rushing attempts in his 3 games he started this year. Against Cleveland, he ran the ball twice, or got 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns against Cleveland when he faced them earlier this year. So I don't mind Jacoby Brissett and Carson Palmer if you are looking for cheap quarterbacks. But definitely my favorite quarterback this week is Dak Prescott at 6,800. And then if you do want to pay up, I don't think it's going to be pretty optimal to pay up at quarterback this week, but love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's definitely in play at 8,100 if you do want to pay up. But yeah, that's pretty much it for quarterback. Those are just some quarterbacks I like this week. I said this before, but I can't go through every single quarterback just because I don't want the video to be so long. So I just have a couple guys written down: Rodgers, Prescott, Palmer, and Brissett. Those are the 4 quarterbacks I'm sort of targeting this week. But yeah, that's pretty much it for quarterback. Let's go ahead and move on to running back. All right, so at running back, up top is Le'Veon Bell at 9,500. I think Bell is a guy I'm going to be paying up for this week. I'm not going to plug him into the core plays because I know some people do build lineups around the core. And I do want to leave you guys some salary to where you can work with if you want to build a lineup around the core. So I'm not going to plug in Bell, but he is a guy I absolutely love this week. He's really expensive at 9,500. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be optimal to pay up at quarterback. I think you are going to be paying up at running back. And Bell is one of those guys. We did see him break out last game against Baltimore, put up 37.6 DraftKings points, ran the ball 35 times, just absolutely insane usage, got 2 touchdowns, also saw 6 targets as well for 42 yards. So Bell is starting to see his full workload. He's in a good spot here against Jacksonville, a team that's been really good against the pass this year, but has been really bad against the run. They're dead last in rushing yards per game this year, with allowing 165.5 rushing yards per game. So I think it's a really good spot for Le'Veon Bell. I think it's a really good spot for him playing at home in Pittsburgh, where we know the Steelers, just all around as a team, play a lot better. They play well at home. So Le'Veon Bell is a guy I'm definitely going to be paying up for this week. I'm not going to plug him into the core plays because I do want to give you guys some salary to where you can build a lineup around the core. But I will definitely have plenty of exposure to Bell. He's my favorite running back by far at 9,500. And then looking for other guys, I'm not really interested in any of these guys 8K and down, or at least under Bell. Zeke Elliott's a guy that I do have some interest in at 8,800, but I don't think I'm going to pay that price tag for him. I would much rather just find the extra salary to get up to Bell. But I did say this earlier, I think that Green Bay-Dallas game is going to be a shootout. So I don't mind Zeke Elliott at 8,800, but I would much rather have Bell for just a little bit less. I don't like Todd Gurley against Seattle. That's a really tough matchup for Gurley. Even though he's getting a heavy workload going up against Seattle, I don't really like taking running backs against Seattle. So I'm not on Gurley, not on any of these 7K guys. I do have some interest in the 6K range. I like Jay Ajayi at 6,600 going up against the Titans. I definitely think Ajayi is in play here. Ajayi's really only had 1 game this year where we've seen him with his massive workload. And that was his first game against the Chargers. Got 28 rushing attempts in that game. Then after that against the Jets and Saints, 2 really good matchups. Ajayi only got 11 and 12 rushing attempts in those games. So the heavy workload hasn't been there yet. But I think we could see Ajayi get back to 20-plus rushing attempts in this game. So I think he is definitely in play at 6,600. If you are looking in that 6K range at running back, Ajayi would definitely be a guy I'd target. I do have some interest in him at 6,600. Then under 6K, one of my core plays at running back. I do really like Christian McCaffrey this week at 5,700 going up against the Lions. I think this is a really good spot for some of these Panthers, specifically the pass catchers. Detroit this year, they've been pretty good against the run, so I don't think Carolina's going to be able to run the ball a ton here. Detroit ranks 7th in the league in rushing yards allowed this year, 86.3 rushing yards per game allowed, which is very good. But against the pass, 236 passing yards per game, which is 21st, so definitely bottom in the league in pass defense. So I don't think the Panthers are going to be able to run the ball a ton with Stewart. I think they are going to have to throw the ball. When they are throwing the ball, obviously McCaffrey is going to be involved. Obviously, McCaffrey is best when he's catching the ball out of the backfield. That's what he's best at. So I think it's a good spot for McCaffrey. He's been involved every game this year. Multiple targets. He's been running the ball as well. 13, 8, 4, and 6 rushing attempts through 4 games, and then 7, 5, 11, and 6 targets as well. So he has been rushing the ball some, has been catching the ball out of the backfield. So I do like this spot for Christian McCaffrey. I do really like his price tag as well at 5,700. I think he's a good guy you can target. If you want to play Bell at RB1, I think McCaffrey's definitely in play at RB2. There are a couple really, really cheap running backs I want to mention, but I'm not sure if they're going to be in play come Sunday. So McCaffrey is a guy I definitely would be considering at RB2 to go with Bell. But the cheap running backs I want to mention are from Seattle. I just wrote down Seattle running backs, didn't write down any in specific. But the two guys I probably would want to mention here, the first guy is Thomas Rawls. I believe he's 3,700. I'm scrolling down here. Yeah, Rawls is 3,700. And the other guy from Seattle is J.D. McKissick. I think that's his name. He's 3,200. These are two guys I want to mention. I'm recording this video right now on Tuesday afternoon. And right now we don't really have any information on who's going to start or who's going to have a heavy workload. But whoever it is, McKissick or Rawls, I think either one of them are in play. They're in a great spot going up against the Rams, who have been absolutely terrible against the run this year. Nearly dead last in rushing yards per game, allowing 151 rushing yards a game. They just got absolutely tore up by Zeke Elliott. So if we get news on who's going to be the starting running back for Seattle, if any of them are going to have a heavy workload, I think they are definitely in play. 37 and 3,200. McKissick's the guy I want to mention first, just because when Chris Carson left that game on Sunday night, McKissick busted out for 2 touchdowns, caught a 30-yard bomb from Russell Wilson, and also ran the ball from 30 yards out, I believe, for a rushing touchdown as well. He looked really explosive, so I think Seattle could start McKissick in this spot. And if he does start and is going to see somewhat of a heavy workload, I think J.D. McKissick is an absolutely great play this week. I'd imagine he's going to be very highly owned just because of how cheap he is. But if a guy's seeing a heavy workload against a terrible run defense and is only 3,200, I'm not sure how you pass that up. So J.D. McKissick's a guy I want to mention. Also Thomas Rawls as well. Not really sure who's going to be on the field the most. But as news comes throughout the week, be sure to take note of that. Be sure to take note of these Seattle running backs. If any of them are going to see a high amount of volume, then I think they are definitely in consideration, especially given their cheap prices. So be sure to take note of those Seattle running backs. But yeah, that's pretty much it for running back. Not a ton of running backs I have interest in. Le'Veon Bell is definitely my favorite this week at 9,500. We'll be jamming him into lineups. But looking for cheaper guys in the 6K range, have some interest in Jay Ajayi. And then under 6K, I like Christian McCaffrey. He's a core play for me at 5,700. I think Carolina's going to be throwing the ball in this game, which sets up well for McCaffrey. So I like him at 5,700. And then that situation in Seattle, just keep following that throughout the week. If we get news come Sunday, who's going to be the starter, who's going to see the volume, whether it's Rawls or McKissick, I think either one of them is in play, given their cheap price and the matchup. So be sure to take note of that throughout the week. But yeah, those are just some running backs I like this week. Let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver. All right, so for wide receiver this week, I don't have a ton of interest on any of the expensive guys. I don't think I'm going to be paying up for wide receiver this week. Like I said, I think Le'Veon Bell is a core play for me. He will definitely be a guy I pay up for, so I'll be spending it running back. Won't be paying up for any of these expensive wide receivers. I really like this mid-tier wide receiver, this 6K range. I think a lot of these guys are good plays, especially these 4 right here, from Fitzgerald down to Des Bryant. Have interest in all 4 of these guys. I wrote all 4 of these guys down. Starting off with Larry Fitzgerald, just 6,800 going up against the Eagles. Like I said earlier, this Eagles secondary is terrible. I think Larry Fitzgerald is a really good play this week at 6,800. I believe he was chalk last week, and it looked like he was going to bust, but I believe that game last week went into overtime, and Fitzgerald caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime, which sort of bailed out all those people that played him last week. He finished with 13.2 DraftKings points, so didn't have that bad of a game last week. I think Fitzgerald's shaped up well to have another good game this week. Like I said, this Eagles secondary is just not good. We know Palmer's going to target Fitzgerald, so I like Larry Fitzgerald at 6,800. Under him, also really like Randall Cobb at 6,700. He is a guy that has been heavily involved this year, has had really solid games. He's been really consistent through 3 games this year. He's got 13, 9, and 4 targets. Has put up 17, 13, and 14 DraftKings points. So Randall Cobb's been really consistent this year. And like I said earlier, love this game, Green Bay, Dallas. I like both sides. Randall Cobb's a guy I have a ton of interest in this week, so I think he is in play at 6,700. Under him, Devontae Parker, another guy I like, is 6,600. Cutler has really relied on Parker's this year. Parker has been heavily involved, has seen a ton of targets, 9, 8, or 9, 10, and 8 targets through 3 games, 12, 21, and 12 DraftKings points. So Parker has also been consistent this year. And like I said, Jay Cutler really relies on him. He's Cutler's go-to guy. Parker is usually the guy that sees the most amount of targets. So I think he is in play at 6,600. Really good matchup against Tennessee, who just absolutely got shredded last week by Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins. So I do like Devontae Parker this week. I think he's in play at 6,600. Then my core play, 6,500, pairing with Dak Prescott. Love Dez Bryant this week at 6,500. Going with Dak and Dez as one of my combos this week. I just think it's a really good spot for the Cowboys in general. Dez is a guy I have a lot of interest in this week. We haven't really seen him break out yet for a monster game. Through 4 games this year, he's only got 6, 18, 9, and 14 DraftKings points. So he's kind of been up and down. But I think this is a great spot for Dez to really get things going. Dallas is going to be playing at home, where we know they play very well. And going up against a Packers secondary that just isn't that good. They're bad against the pass. I think it's a great spot for Dez Bryant. Going to be pairing him with Dak Prescott. One of my favorite quarterback wide receiver combos this week is Dak with Dez. They're definitely core plays for me this week. So absolutely love Dez Bryant. I think he's a very good play at 6,500. And then one cheap guy I want to mention. I'm going to type in his name real quick. I believe he's under 5K. Jaron Brown, 4,500 going up against the Eagles. Really like Jaron Brown this week if you are looking for a cheap receiver. I said this earlier, this Eagles secondary is just not good. I think a lot of these Cardinals receivers are in play. Fitzgerald and Jaron Brown being 2 of them. Brown has been heavily involved, especially in the last few games. In his last 3 games, he's seen 11, 6, and 12 targets, has put up 11, 10, and 21 DraftKings points. And that last game against the 49ers, I believe J.J. Nelson and John Brown were both active for that game, so they had all their receivers out there. And Brown still saw 10-plus targets, even when all the receivers were out there and healthy. So I think he's definitely an interesting play, especially at just 4,500. He's very, very cheap. And going up against a really bad Eagles secondary, I do have a lot of interest in Jaron Brown. I think if you're looking for a cheap receiver this week, I think he makes a lot of sense. At just 4,500. But yeah, those are just some receivers I like this week. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to be paying up. Really like the 6K range. Larry Fitzgerald, Randall Cobb, Devontae Parker, Dez Bryant, all 4 of them I think are great plays this week. Right here, these 3s right here, and then Dez Bryant, I think all good plays in the 6K range. And if you are looking for a cheap receiver, definitely like Jaron Brown at just 4,500. But yeah, that's pretty much it for wide receiver. Let's go ahead and move on to tight end. Alright, so tight end this week, like most weeks, not going to be looking to pay up here. I really like some cheap tight ends. Zach Ertz is our most expensive tight end. He's 6,200. But he is in a tough matchup against Arizona, a really good Cardinals defense. So I don't have a ton of interest in Zach Ertz. Just tight ends, not a position I usually like to pay up. I like some guys in the 4K and 3K range. So no interest in Ertz. In the 4K range, I do like Delanie Walker at 4,700 going up against the Dolphins. I've said this before, but Delanie Walker is a guy I just always have interest in just because he's always involved. But one thing to take note of, Marcus Mariota is questionable for this game. And if he is out, maybe would downgrade Walker. I'm not really sure how much Matt Castle targeted Walker when Mariota came out of the game. But I know Mariota does lean heavily on Walker. So if Mariota's playing, I think Delanie Walker is definitely in play as well. I'll have to look back and see how much Castle targeted Walker when Castle was in the game. But if Mariota plays, definitely like Delanie Walker at 4,700. And then getting towards the low 4K range, wrote down Evan Ingram at 4K. Going up against the Chargers, I think Evan Ingram is in play. He's another guy that's been heavily involved this year. 5, 7, 7, and 11 targets through 4 games. Has put up 8, 14, 9, and 12 DraftKings points. So he's been pretty consistent for his price tag. His price is starting to get up there, though, at 4K. Saw a $1,000 price jump off his last game. But even with the price increase, I think Evan Ingram's still in play here. Eli Manning will get him the ball. Has seen a lot of targets through 4 games. So I do like Evan Ingram this week at 4K. I think if you're looking in the 4K range, I think he's definitely in play. Then my core tight end this week is just under 4K. I really like Jared Cook here at 3,900 going up against the Ravens. With Derek Carr out for the Raiders and with EJ Manuel starting, I think Jared Cook is in a really interesting spot. I don't think the Raiders are going to go out there and let EJ Manuel just toss the ball 30 yards, 40 yards downfield to Cooper or Crabtree. And I don't think they're going to run the ball a ton either, especially not with Lynch. We know Lynch is old. You can't really just give him the ball 30 times a game. So I think we could see EJ Manuel throwing a lot of short passes, which could set up well for Jared Cook. EJ Manuel did target Cook a lot when he was in the game. So I think Jared Cook is definitely in an interesting spot here. I think he's going to see increased targets with a backup quarterback. When you usually have your backup starting, you don't want him throwing the ball a ton downfield. You want him checking the ball, just a lot of short passes, a lot of short little slants, which does set up well for tight ends. So I like Jared Cook this week at 3,900. Love his price tag. Like I said, I always like to pay down at tight end. So Jared Cook's a guy I have a lot of interest in at 3,900. And then one more tight end I have written down is Hunter Henry at 3,800 going up against the Giants. Now the Giants are a pretty good defense, but they are definitely bad against tight ends. The Rams are a team you target with running backs. The Giants, their teams you target with tight ends. So I think Hunter Henry is interesting here. He has been really inconsistent this year. Through 4 games, he has 2 decent games and then 2 zeros. Put up 0 against Kansas City and 0 against Denver. And then against the Dolphins, put up 15 DraftKings points. Against the Eagles, put up 9.6 DK points. Hasn't really seen a ton of targets either. Has only seen 10 targets through 4 games. But going up against the Giants defense, who's been really bad against tight ends, I believe the Giants have allowed a tight end to score every week so far this year. So I think Hunter Henry is interesting. I don't think I'd play Antonio Gates. I think Hunter Henry would be the guy I would target. The Giants are really bad against tight ends, so he is definitely interesting at 3,800. But yeah, those are just some tight ends I like this week. I'm not going to be looking to pay up. In the 4K range, I like Delaney Walker if Marcus Mariota plays. Then at 4K, I think Evan Ingram's in play. And then sub 4K, I like Jared Cook at 3,900. He is a core play this week, one of my favorite tight ends. Then at 3,800, I think Hunter Henry is in play just because of how bad the Giants have been against tight ends this year. But yeah, that's pretty much it for tight end. Let's go ahead and move on to defense. Alright, so at defense this week, I have 4 defenses written down. First off, I do like the Steelers up top at 3,900 playing at home against Jacksonville. I think the Steelers are probably the best option on the board. They are very expensive for a defense. I usually don't like to pay nearly 4K for my defense. But playing at home against Blake Bortles, a quarterback that we know will turn the ball over and will get sacked, I think the Steelers are a really good option this week at 3,900. But I am going to look to save. There are some cheaper defenses I have interest in. The Bengals at 3,300 playing at home as well. I do really like targeting defenses at home. That's one thing I always take note of is if a defense is playing at home. The Steelers and Bengals both playing at home, so I think they are in good spots. The Bengals are going to be going up against the Bills. An offense I'm not going to shy away from taking defenses against. So I think the Bengals are in play at 3,300 if you are looking a little cheaper. And then looking towards a cheaper 3K range, I have one defense just a little bit more expensive than 3K, and then one defense that's cheaper than 3K. 3,100, like I said earlier, I like Carson Palmer this week, but I wouldn't mind taking the Eagles defense against Palmer. Palmer has been getting sacked a ton this year. The Eagles are going to be playing at home, and like I said, I love defenses at home, so I think the Eagles are a good option at 3,100 this week. But my favorite defense on the board is under 3K. Absolutely love the Raiders here at 2,900 playing at home against the Ravens. I think it's just a really good spot for this Raiders defense. I think with Derek Carr out of this game, I think the Raiders defense is really going to have to step up. And they are in a really good spot going up against the Ravens, going up against Joe Flacco, who I just think is not that good of a quarterback, who will turn the ball over, will get sacked, will take sacks. And I love the Raiders are going to be playing at home here, and they're just 2,900. So they're a defense I have a lot of interest in. They're core defense for me. I think they're a pretty good cash game play. If you are playing cash games, I think paying down, going towards the Raiders, definitely optimal. So one of my core defense, my favorite defense on the week this week is the Raiders at just 2,900. But yeah, that's pretty much it for defense. I think the Steelers up top are probably the best play on the board if you can fit them in. But I do always like to save a defense, so won't be plugging them into the core, but I do like the Steelers. I like the Bengals at 3,300. I think the Eagles are interesting at 3,100 as well, going up against Palmer, who will take a ton of sacks. So I think the Eagles are in play just over 3K. And 3K and under, my favorite defense on the week is the Raiders at 2,900. Love them. Love that price tag as well. think they're in a really good spot playing at home against Joe Flacco. So I like the Raiders. My favorite defense on the week, 2,900. But yeah, that's pretty much it for defense. That's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said earlier, make sure you drop a like on the video. I would really appreciate it. Let's try and get over 300 likes again. Would mean a lot to me if we could do that. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe as well. Do upload these NFL videos every week for you guys. Also make MLB and NBA videos as well. If you guys are playing MLB DFS during the postseason, be sure to check out my MLB videos. I just uploaded a video yesterday breaking down the wild card slate. So if you are playing MLB DFS, make sure you check out that video. And if you are planning to play NBA during this upcoming season, I will be making NBA videos daily. So make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you back for week 6. Good luck this week, guys. Peace.
Oh, sauce it down, sauce it up. You too much, ain't enough. Where you from? Throw it out, going nuts, yeah, going down. Oh, sauce it down, sauce it up.